Zoom anamorphic lenses, AF anamorphic lenses, they are all here. But are they actually any good? With 2 decades of experience and hands-on testing the latest anamorphic lenses, I am about to deep dive in and the results might just surprise you. Let's start with a question that every single filmmaker asks at some point. What the heck is anamorphic? So this right here is a normal lens. I'm guessing in one way or another that you own this kind of lens. We call these lenses normal because all the glass elements inside are perfectly circular. Now, anamorphic lenses squish the image sideways, and it does this by using oval shaped glass instead of the perfectly circular ones. So why would you want to squish your image? Back in the day, film was expensive and the physical size of it was actually really limited. So filmmakers started to use anamorphic lenses to fit more horizontal image into the same vertical space, effectively meaning you got a wider field of view without needing more film. It's not just about the extra width. Anamorphic lenses give you a very distinct and cinematic look that is really hard to fake. You get black bars at the top and the bottom of the image like we see in all those movies. You also get oval shaped bokeh, yet the outer focus areas of the image will go from circular to oval. And finally, you get those horizontal lens flares. Think sci-fi movie, think J.J. Abraham. And we all know how much we're all chasing that cinematic look, and that's the reason that there is so much demand and interest in cinematic lenses today. But that is only one piece of the puzzle, because once you have captured your squished image, you need to unsquash it. Compression, de-squeeze and aspect ratios. Let's start with compression, and this has nothing to do with the compression that we talk about when we are referring to file sizes and codecs in the world of computers. Compression when it comes to anamorphic lenses refers to how squished that image gets before it hits your camera sensor. Let's say you're using a 2x anamorphic lens. This means that it will take a really wide image and squish this 2x horizontally to fit all that information onto your camera's sensor. So when you see numbers on the camera lens like 1.3 times, 1.5 times, or 1.8 times, this just refers to how much the image is being compressed. Simply put, the higher the number, the more the image is being squished. Once we have captured that compressed image, we need to uncompress it, and this process is called de-squeezing. Some cameras and external monitors can preview you a de-squeezed image in the monitor or camera so it looks more normal when you are shooting, but in almost every case it is still recorded in the squished format. So in your editing software, whether that is Premiere, Final Cut or DaVinci, you will de-squeeze your footage by stretching it horizontally until everything becomes the correct shape. Think of it like a balloon. The anamorphic lens squishes it, and in post you bring it all back to its original shape so that everything looks normal again. Now here is the final part, aspect ratio. This is the shape of your image broken down into width versus height. The standard video frame of today is 16:9, and this is what we see on YouTube and most TVs. But when you shoot anamorphic and de-squeeze it, you end up with much more width, meaning that your finished aspect ratio will be something along the lines of 2.39:1 or 2.35:1. I know that is a lot of numbers. This basically means that the higher the number, the more width you'll have in your image, and the larger those black bars at the top and the bottom. So those cinematic black bars that you see on the top and the bottom, they are not some kind of filter or just something you slap on top of your image. That is the result of a real physical image captured by an anamorphic lens and then de-squeezing it properly. To bring this all together, compression, the lens squeezes a wider image all into one frame. De-squeeze, you stretch your image back out in post, and aspect ratio, you get the wide cinematic look with those real black bars below and above the image. So now that we've covered all the fundamentals of anamorphic lenses, let's talk about exploring new creative techniques. I've been diving into a few classes recently to sharpen up my creative business game, especially as I try to balance running productions, making content and growing as a creator. One class I'm loving right now is the Go Getter Mini by Bonnie Christian. It's all about taking big creative goals and actually making them happen, which, let's be honest, it's half the battle while you're trying to juggle all the different job roles and responsibilities in today's world. If you've never used it before, Skillshare is the largest online learning platform built especially for creatives, with thousands of classes in the area like filmmaking, photography, animation, design, business, and way more. It's not just passive learning. Classes are designed to help you learn by doing, with real projects you can share and build. Skillshare is an amazing way to invest in yourself and your work, especially if you're looking to turn your creativity into something bigger this year. And the best part is, the first 500 people to use the link in the description below get 1 month completely free. Check it out and let me know what class you start, as I'm always looking for new recommendations. Alright, so far we've been talking about lenses built from the ground up to be anamorphic lenses, but there is actually another way, and that is anamorphic adapters. These adapters screw onto the front of your normal or spherical lens. So why would anyone go this route instead of just buying a dedicated anamorphic lens? Well, like anything, there is pros and cons. Let's start with the pros. Affordable entry point. Some anamorphic adapters start from as little as $200. This is a great way to just test the waters without spending a fortune. Using your current lenses, you can pair an anamorphic adapter with pretty much any lens you already own, giving you more flexibility and creative options. But it's not all good news, there are definitely some drawbacks. Most older or budget-friendly anamorphic adapters make you focus both the lens and the adapter separately, and this is no fun, especially if you are filming something with movement. Alignment matters. The adapter needs to be mounted perfect level. If it is just a little bit tilted, then your images will look skew. And of course, just like putting any adapter or filter on the front of your lens, you run into the normal issues of like vignetting or unwanted reflections. Now, I don't want to be too negative about adapters, they're not all bad. I've seen some stunning footage, especially when combined with some higher end setups or some vintage glass. But in my own opinion, and the general consensus online, it is a much superior way to shoot with a proper anamorphic lens. To sum up anamorphic adapters, I always like to say, you can absolutely get the look, just sometimes you're gonna have to fight for it. I think it's really important that we don't just throw around the phrase the anamorphic look. This look is highly sought after, and for good reason. I think the best way to do this is to break down its famous characteristics and really define it. Number one is the wider field of view. This is the most immediate and noticeable thing you're going to see when capturing anamorphic footage. As we've already said, anamorphic lenses squeeze more horizontal footage onto the sensor to then de-squeeze in post. Now, for example, this translates to a 50mm 2x anamorphic lens captures the vertical height of a 50mm, but the horizontal width of a 25mm equivalent. And in my own experience, the extra width does feel inherently cinematic and not just wider. Number two is the oval bokeh. This is a really famous trait of anamorphic lenses. It takes the highlights and bright parts of your image and stretches them into ovals instead of being the typical circular ones. Number three is horizontal lens flares. Whenever anamorphic lenses are hit with light directly, they streak across the entire frame with a lens flare. You can get a blue lens flare, and this is kind of a more modern coating. You can get an amber lens flare, and this is seen more in vintage stuff. Or you can get a white or neutral lens flare, and this just leans into the more neutral style. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of anamorphic lens flares, but I do get the appeal. Number four is unique distortion. Anamorphic lenses bring their own brand of distortion, from a little subtle barrel warping to kind of really more extreme edge stretching, depending on which lens. You can also often get field curvature, where the lens doesn't keep everything on the same focus plane. This results in a slightly swirly, dreamlike edges, while the center stays really sharp. And number five, textures and imperfections. There is definitely an organicness that comes from anamorphic lenses. You might see subtle flares in low light, minor color shifts or ghosting, softer edges or lower contrast in certain lighting. But instead of seeing these as flaws, many filmmakers see these as part of the look. These imperfections are what give the lenses their personality. It feels organic and handcrafted. Now you pretty much know everything you need to know about anamorphic lenses, but there is still one elephant in the room we need to talk about. Open gate. This is the latest trend on the internet and almost a buzzworthy feature for cameras, but what is the real benefit of OpenGate, and especially when it comes to capturing anamorphic? For those who do not know, OpenGate is where you capture the full sensor and not just the standard 16:9 crop. Think of your camera sensor as this piece of paper. Normally you're using a rectangle cut out of the middle, like tearing strips away from the center. OpenGate, you're using the entire sheet of paper. This is super helpful when shooting anamorphic. Let me explain why. To get the best possible result, you need to capture as much vertical resolution as possible because the anamorphic lens will compress the image horizontally. OpenGate lets your anamorphic lens breathe. It gets you more image, more detail, it gets you the wider cinematic field of view done properly. Let's get on to the future of anamorphic and how the landscape is changing so fast. For the first time in history, we are entering the era of accessibility for everyone when it comes to anamorphic and not just those massive big productions. And for me, there's a few standout companies that are making this happen. Let's start with Laowa. I've recently just been testing their new 2x anamorphic zoom lens. Now, just for 1 second, think about that. We now have a reasonably priced 2x anamorphic zoom lens on the market. It has an internal zoom, build quality is super professional, built like a tank, and it is super smooth throughout the entire zoom range. If I'm being a little bit picky, I wish it had a little bit more anamorphic character. It kind of leans to the more modern side of anamorphic, but overall it's an amazing lens. Yes, it is a little bit higher of the budget range with its pricing, but when you compare it to picking up individual lenses throughout its zoom range of 2x anamorphics, it's actually priced really well. The entire nanomorph range from Laowa has been really good for anamorphic lenses. They have tried to take really kind of expensive feeling, well-made anamorphic lenses and bring them way down to a more affordable level. And personally, the nanomorph LF lenses are the favorite anamorphic lenses I have used. They strike a really good balance between size, price, performance, and image quality. Up until now, if you needed a zoom anamorphic lens, you needed 30k plus into a Cook or a Hawk lens. Laowa have totally flipped that on its head. Next up is Blazer, formerly known as Greatjoy. I still consider the original branded Greatjoy anamorphic lenses as some of the best on sale, but now under the Blazer name, they are quickly becoming a staple of the budget cinema world. They are one of only 2 companies right now who are offering electronical AF anamorphic lenses. They've also just teased a photography concept anamorphic lens, which also has a barrel that rotates, meaning that when you shoot vertical content, all the oval bokeh and the blurriness will all be de-squeezed in the correct way. This is wildly smart for creators in today's world. And their lenses just tend to be really grungy and aggressively anamorphic. If you're someone who wants tons of character, these could be perfect for you. We've also got to mention DxO and their Pavo anamorphic lenses. DxO have risen to the very top of the cinema lens world, which is great to see, and their Pavo lenses are super impressive. Superb image quality for the price, full cinema mechanics, sharp, contrasty, and just full of character. For me, it's a real toss-up between the DxO Pavos and the Nanomorph LF, for which is my favourite budget anamorphic lens on sale today. There are of course other brands worth mentioning, Voltrox, Atlas, but for the sake of time, let's just talk about the one last company I think are leading the charge. To me, at the moment, Sirui are the kings of budget lenses in general. Their price to performance is kind of unbelievable. Their new full frame VP1 line of lenses comes to mind, but they also offer a massive range of anamorphics. S35 and full frame versions are 1.33 times, a 1.6 times, a 1.8 times, an anamorphic adapter. They have tiny form factors and now an AF anamorphic lens. Yes, Sirui are the other company offering an electronical anamorphic lens with AF. They started with the 40mm T1.8 and they have just announced their 20mm, which is even smaller. It's light, compact and balances beautifully on any mirrorless camera. Its AF works just like any photography lens. The 20mm is Super 35 coverage, although you can use it on a full frame with a crop. as I've been doing. It is available in E-mount, Z-mount and Fuji X, but they have also just announced they are joining the L-mount alliance. This is actually massive news because pairing an AF anamorphic lens with a Lumix open gate camera with their great AF system is going to be a match made in heaven. Oh, and this feels strange to say, Blackmagic, if they can get their AF system out there and up to scratch, pairing an AF anamorphic lens with their L-mount cameras, which are also open gate, could also be such a good combo. So where do we go from here? Well, as I mentioned, Blazer have demoed off their concept photography lens, which shows that there is a real future in the world of photography for anamorphics for the first time ever. Could we even see an anamorphic lens in the future with built-in stabilization? I genuinely believe we are not that far off seeing something like a 24 to 70mm f2.8 1.5x anamorphic zoom lens with electronics and AF. Imagine that paired with a mirrorless camera with built-in open gate recording. I actually only think we're a few years of this being a reality. More choices, more formats and more tools for solo creators, it's all coming. And in the meantime, while you wait, get 20 years of lighting advice in this video right here.